And this is one of the biggest secrets that women are not told. How you feel is a direct correlation to your estrogen levels. So if you feel like you're in menopause, if you feel like you're in perimenopause, or you could be, yeah, chances are you probably are. But it's not those terms you should worry about. It is estrogen, because you can prevent perimenopause and menopause if you fully restore your estrogen. Hello, everyone. You're listening to the Menopause Moxie podcast, where we strategically challenge the status quo on perimenopause, menopause, and female hormone balancing. I'm clinical hormone coach Marie Hoäg, and I'm here with my producer and co-host, Maggie Kuhn. Welcome to the show. Today's Ask Moxie episode is built around the questions women have sent in, questions that surface when the standard explanations of perimenopause, menopause, and hormone therapy just don't add up. In a moment, Maggie will bring those questions into the conversation, and we'll talk through them with the same clinical clarity and context I use in practice. Hello, Maggie.
Hey, Marie. The Ask Moxie episodes are always so great because they really resonate with women, and because they're giving them something that they rarely get, which are straight answers grounded in clinical reality. So today's questions reflect the same themes we see over and over: uncertainty, frustration, and a sense that what they're experiencing isn't being fully explained. I'd love for you to walk us through these the way you do in clinic so women can finally connect the dots. So here's our first question. How does a woman know whether she's in perimenopause, menopause, or just hormonal? And why do so many people feel dismissed when they try to get clarity?
Well, it's always all hormonal. It's really always hormonal, but I like to reframe this question where we want to first address these conditions as being estrogen deficiency conditions. So when women say, am I in perimenopause or menopause, we should be asking, do I have enough estrogen or not? Because perimenopause and menopause are side effects of estrogen deficiency. So I think we have to reframe how we approach perimenopause and menopause. And I think that'll help women get clarity if she can understand this. Because women can tell if they're in perimenopause or menopause by how she feels. When estrogen declines, women will feel it. They'll feel it in her brain, her moods, her mental illness symptoms such as depression and anxiety and that sort of thing. So it's really important for women to understand, estrogen deficiency, what perimenopause and menopause really are, because they are side effects of estrogen deficiency. So if women understand that the side effects that they're experiencing are not those of perimenopause and menopause, and that rather they are those of estrogen deficiency, then they can get some better, clearer answers for themselves and get care. See, they get dismissed because doctors aren't trained in adequate dose HRT protocols. If doctors get any training at all, they're trained in low dose HRT, not therapeutic dose HRT that gets rid of the symptoms. So women get dismissed a lot because the prescribers just don't know. They don't know how to answer the questions because they haven't had the training. So they do dismiss women. And doctors don't tell women that they don't have training. So doctors can practice hormone therapy without any sort of training or education at all and gaslight women in this regard, saying, well, I don't know, we don't know. Everybody's different. Everybody's bio-individual. Like that shuts women up. Oh, yeah, we're all bio-individual. So that just, honestly, that word really bothers me that practitioners use that. It is a way to shut women up because nobody knows how to respond to that. It sounds good, but it just really doesn't serve women. So doctors will typically dismiss women when they just don't know.
Yeah.
And so usually they're conventionally trained physicians who prescribe low dose therapies.
So would a rule of thumb for women be, if you're wondering if you're in perimenopause or menopause, you likely are?
Yeah. So when I say everything's hormonal, it is. Once women make the connection between how they're feeling and their estrogen levels, they're like, oh no, you just keep my estrogen tank full. They know that they can control how they feel. And this is one of the biggest secrets that women are not told. How you feel is a direct correlation to your estrogen levels. So if you feel like you're in menopause, if you feel like you're in perimenopause, or you could be, yeah, chances are you probably are. But it's not those terms you should worry about. It is estrogen, because you can prevent perimenopause and menopause if you fully restore your estrogen.
Yeah. And that's what this whole podcast is really about. So if
Yeah.
somebody listening to this wants to know more, I would encourage them to go back and listen to previous episodes.
And subscribe.
Yeah, absolutely. So another question, I so many women say I tried hormone therapy and it didn't work. From your clinical perspective, what usually went wrong?
When a patient tells me that, my first response usually just, I don't know, it just comes out over the ears. Well, you weren't on the good stuff. And that's what you weren't on the good stuff. You were underdosed. Because when women get enough estrogen, they feel it and they know it. And it works for most women. So typically the first thing I think of when women say I've tried hormone therapy, one, I'm like, okay, well, they were underdosed. So clearly they went to somebody who didn't know what they were doing, because women who do go to somebody who knows what they're doing, this isn't a problem. So underdosed is one reason. Women who are on hormone therapy that have gut dysbiosis, that will impact um, the clinical efficacy and the sustainability of any HRT system. So gut health is really important. This is not something women like to hear, because it means they have to make changes in their diet that they've tried before and failed. So they tend to get a little panicky here when we talk about gut health. I've tried. I'm like, well, you haven't had hormones, or plenty of them. It tells me also that they probably are going to a doctor who has no training, that they're just reading the package insert of the patches on how to prescribe these hormones. It also tells me that, if it didn't work for them, then they either had too many medical issues or on too many medications. They have a negative attitude towards hormones, and they were possibly non-compliant or looking for absolutely every reason to be unhappy about them. We've seen this negativism, and we've talked about it in previous shows. And really, Maggie, there is a extremely small percentage of women who just don't do well on HRT, and where we've tried everything. But I'd have to say that this is probably somewhere about, maybe about 5%. I want to say 3 to 5%, but I'm leaning more on like 5%. Women need enough estrogen for it to work, for any protocol to work. No protocol, no HRT protocol works if estrogen is underdosed. It needs to be managed in the hormone sweet spot forever for a woman to get the benefits from it.
Well, that's a really clear bottom line. And it leads into our next question, which is the fact that lots of women are still terrified of estrogen. They hear cancer, blood clots, and stroke, in the same breath as estrogen or estrogen therapy or estrogen replacement. So, how do you address that fear without minimizing it?
Well, this is the part where I really have to educate patients, and why our program is so important for women to consider, because women have to understand estrogen. They have to understand how much they need. They have to understand the protective benefits of estrogen when it's dosed correctly. It's cancer protective, it's cardioprotective, it's neuroprotective. When women finally find out just how protective estrogen is and how good estrogen makes women feel, then they start to calm down. And I usually bring up the fact that it's estrogen that protects women against cancer, and that if estrogen caused cancer, that pregnant women whose estrogen can get up over 40 to 50,000, where I manage mine between 3 and 500. So you can imagine a woman with, levels of over 40,000, that they're not at risk for cancer. In fact, it's the most cancer protective, because a pregnant woman's life has to be insured so that we can go on as a species. And so estrogen is utilized in creating this fetus, this infant. It also acts as a protectant against any sort of diseases the woman can be subjected to when her estrogen is low, and it's not there to protect her. So when I tell women that, oh, your estrogen, if you had children, your estrogen went up very high, and that's the most cancer protective. And women typically get cancer when estrogen is low. Even young women who got cancer, breast cancer at a young age, if you checked her lab levels, chances are her estrogen would have been deficient. Women with plenty of estrogen just don't, they're just not susceptible to cancer. And
Yeah.
so I try to educate them as much as possible. But if a woman still believes that estrogen, and I try to get this before they make a commitment to one of our programs, because if a woman has any doubts at all or has fears, it just won't be successful. And our job, and my job as a clinical hormone coach, is to walk the patient through this process to get to the hormone sweet spot so they have plenty of estrogen, so they don't have to worry about cancer. They don't have to worry about heart disease. They don't have to worry about hot flashes and heart palpitations and those sorts of things. Saying estrogen protects everything down to the nucleus of every cell. So the more women understand this, the better they can feel, and they can find practitioners who know how to prescribe hormone therapy. The fourth generation HRT systems, because as you know, most doctors prescribe the first and second generation HRT systems that keep hormones low. And so if you're interested in learning more about the four generations of HRT, we do have an episode, and I think that's episode 6.
Yeah.
But there is a difference in HRT protocols, and which HRT protocol a patient takes matters on the cancer protective benefits of it. Women will have some cancer protective benefits with this first and second generation HRT, but certainly not like what they would get from a third or especially a fourth generation HRT protocol like what we use.
It seems, I think, for most women, it's a holdover from the Women's Health Initiative research study that came out in the early 2000s that scared women and doctors off of hormone replacement therapy, especially estrogen.
You
So,
know, yeah, and the history of this is really interesting because this fear of estrogen and cancer goes back over 100 years. I mean, this didn't just start. I was revisiting some of the history when I was working on the physician's training curriculum on the history of all this, the history of HRT. And they were talking about estrogen being a cancer scare in the late 1700s. So there's just always been this question year after year, but nobody's been able to prove it. But it's just carried on year after year. But that's just been such a horrible thing for women because they've been robbed of estrogen. They've been withheld estrogen for this fear that nobody can show. So, and I do tell women, listen, I've been working with thousands of patients over the years using nothing but therapeutic dose advanced HRT protocols that gets hormone that fully fills the empty estrogen and progesterone tanks. And you think that we would see just one breast cancer incident after another, after another, after another. And in reality, we saw a reduction. And this is why I feel so strongly about this, is women have a less likely chance of getting cancer if they fill their estrogen tank up to the brim.
yeah. Thank you for answering that one so clearly. And here's another one that I think there's a lot of confusion around. We get so many questions from women who feel anxious, flat, depressed, or emotionally unstable. From your perspective, how is that actually a hormone problem?
Oh, it's one of the first symptoms to pay attention to tell a woman that she's estrogen deficient. I mean, we have normalized these feelings for women from a very young age. And oh, I feel this, feel flat. When women tell me that, it's like, because you're dying, because your hormone levels are sending a message to your brain that you're really old and you should be dying, and your brain and body are in the process of the living decaying process of preparing to die, no longer in your reproductive prime. And so there's just this steady decline. And it starts with this. And this is what women have to pay attention to. If you're depressed, feel anxious or flat, that's a symptom of estrogen deficiency. Women with plenty of estrogen rarely feel that way. And it's usually, if they do, it has nothing to do with their hormone levels. So, yeah, don't ignore this. Our society has normalized this, but no, this is the first indication of estrogen is probably in the tank. And this happens to about 80 to 90% of women, especially women as we're going through stage 1 perimenopause, when they're realizing it's like, what the hell? Why do I feel so horrible? And we've talked about this before. What is so wrong with my life? which is wrong. I mean, there's just this malcontent that's just unexplainable. And women don't like that about themselves, especially if they were young and happy-go-lucky and had a cute personality and was able to handle things. And now they're just dragging their knuckles and just don't want to live and can't figure out what's the point. I'll never be what I wanted to be. I've got these kids, I got a husband, nothing's working, my job. This is not the career I wanted. This is a tough time. And it's about this time women are feeling flat because their job is showing it. It's showing in their relationships. It's showing in the relationships a woman has with her children, with her significant other. This is important. Don't ignore this. So when women feel anxious, flat, depressed, or emotionally unstable, this is the time where you say, I need hormones. Let me check my estrogen levels. Don't wait until you have horrible periods or wait until you're being checked into a mental home, for crying out loud. No, this is when you do it here. This is when you fully restore. Well, the second half of that question is, how often is this actually a hormone problem? Yeah, about 80 to 90% of the time. So the goal is to, before women start taking all these psychotropic drugs and buying a bunch of supplements to manage these symptoms, check your estrogen levels. I mean, if your estrogen is in the tank and your FSH is sky high, well, then get on some hormones and fix that, and then see if there's anything left over, because that's typically what we do. You restore the estrogen, a lot of these things just go away, and then you get a better chance to see what's actually going on with the patient, and then you can refer the patient out to a specialist to take care of that, or continue on with the functional medicine matrix and see what you can do to help them in that regard.
Yeah, because I've heard you say that plenty of estrogen doesn't fix everything, but it does fix most things.
Oh yeah, and yeah, I want to be clear. I do talk a lot about estrogen, Maggie. I mean, I talk about it in my sleep. I mean, my pets are running from me at night. It's like, had it about estrogen, but I'll tell you something. It does fix most things. It doesn't fix everything, but that you certainly want, because of how much it does fix. There's no reason to start anywhere else. You have to start here, because when I say
Yeah.
80 to 90%, that's not a lie. A good indicator, because we use patient clinical indicators, these sorts of things, depression, feeling flat, those are clinical indicators. We actually use them on our hormone balance test in the clinic. Our clinical indicator assessment is what the hormone balance test that women take to check to see if they have enough estrogen or not. So if you're a woman and you're feeling flat or depressed or anxious and just feeling like what's the sense, go to hormonebalancetest.com and take the hormone balance test and get your score, get your clinical indicator score. And if your score is over 25, well, then chances are, you might want to take a look at your estrogen levels, because chances are your estrogen is low. And the best time to restore estrogen is at the beginning of the decline. You don't want to wait until your hormone take is completely deficient. Yeah, it's just a great way for women to get a starting point of, oh my gosh, my clinical indicator score is like 100. Like, what the hell?
So, we're talking about a couple of indicators like depression, anxiety, uh, that definitely are a signal that estrogen may be low. But sometimes it's not really that clear. And they say things like, I can't point to one symptom. I just don't feel like myself anymore. So, from a clinical hormone perspective, what does that actually tell you?
That they're at the beginning of the end. And that's what I call stage 1 perimenopause. They don't know why they don't feel good. And depending on the patient's clinical category, this moment can mean different things. Like women who have been very healthy most of their life, and their only real crime is their ovaries are failing them. This to them is like, what is like, this is the first rude awakening for them, because they're used to being healthy, they're used to feeling good all the time, and now they're not, and they're don't know what to do about it because they don't like taking things or doing things, and so this makes it tough. Women in category 2, 3, and 4, there's usually more than one thing going on. So when somebody says it's not just one thing, I'm just like, okay, well, tell me what else is going on, because I'll tell you something right now, there's usually a menstrual cycle issue going on at the same time. So typically my first question is, tell me about the health of your menstrual cycle, because the symptoms that women feel get worse the lower estrogen gets. So when somebody tells me I'm feeling blah, I'm like, okay, because women on estrogen, as you know, Maggie, don't feel blah. And so when they say that, I'm like, oh, well, let's check your clinical indicator score, and let's check your blood labs. and let's get an idea about what's going on behind the scenes here.
It makes me think of sort of the tale about the frog and the boiling water. The frog gets put into the pot of water when it's room temperature, and then it's just on low and gets slowly turned up. So the frog doesn't know that it's being boiled
Mm-hmm.
alive. And I
That's a
think that's
very
what's happening for women, because it's not like it's so obvious usually. It's a certain time of life comes, whereas you mentioned before, there's a lot going on usually for a woman kind of midlife. She may have children. She likely has a job. She may have a spouse, a home, and the wheels have started to fall off. So it's hard to pinpoint or really be aware of, oh my gosh, that's what's happening. And I think this is why it slides. Of course, complete lack of education as well, for most of us women, is why this slides. But fortunately, there is more and more awareness. So what I'm hearing you say is feeling blah, feeling off, feeling not yourself, feeling depressed, feeling anxious. These are all really good clinical indicators that your estrogen is dropping.
But what's really tough, Maggie, for women is when they start feeling this way, they want to do something about it and they don't know where to go. And they go to social media groups and they are listening to other women and they do get some validation there that they're not going crazy, because that's what people are saying. You're crazy. You're crazy. You're a Karen. And now the name for a perimenopausal women now have a name. Did you hear that? It's Jessica. Yes,
What?
they've now there's this millennial perimenopausal women that people are complaining about.
Oh, I have not
But
heard
now, so
this
we've
one.
got Karen and we have Jessica. But what's interesting is Karen and Jessica are just estrogen deficient. Give her a break. Give Karen and Jessica estrogen, and you won't experience Karen or Jessica in the same way. And this is what women need to understand is it doesn't get better when you get older, it gets worse. And the lower estrogen gets, the worse it gets. So the best time to intervene with starting on an advanced HRT protocol is when women have decided they're finished bearing children and they're noticing something isn't right. And it doesn't matter what age that is. Now, this is the time to get on a therapeutic dose, fill up the hormone tank, and keep that hormone tank full to the day you die. So when I hear that, women, are complaining about things or they have this menopausal flatness, it's like, okay, well, if you're finished having children, now's the time. So for you, this is good news. We're not those practitioners that say, okay, well, give us a call. We used to give us a call back when your periods have stopped for a year. Now, we've learned years ago that this is so cruel to leave perimenopausal women going through this slow, steady decline of her brain and body as her estrogen declines over time.
Yeah, it's not the way it has to be. So, switching away a little bit from estrogen
Mm-hmm.
to progesterone, women are often told that progesterone will calm them down, yet many feel worse on it. So, what's happening there?
This is very common for patients of functional medicine practitioners, typically because they underdose estrogen. Progesterone is often misdosed by practitioners who have not had any sort of education on estrogen or how to fully restore it or estrogen's relationship to progesterone. Estrogen is a woman's main sex hormone. Progesterone is a woman's secondary hormone. And progesterone only functions as the calming secondary main sex hormone if there's plenty of circulating estrogen. And because these practitioners underdose estrogen and they try to load women up, because doctors aren't afraid of progesterone like they are of estrogen. So they figure, oh, you need to calm down because you have adrenal issues, or you need to calm down. Progesterone's the calming hormone. No, estrogen is the calming hormone. And progesterone acts as that supporting calming hormone when estrogen's on board. So yes, progesterone has this presence as being this calming hormone, but only if there's enough circulating estrogen. And this bothers me that there's this group of practitioners who keep estrogen underdosed, overdose women in progesterone, create an estrogen dominance effect in these patients, and then sell these detoxification types of programs and supplements to their patients that further flush estrogen out of the system, and then say, oh, well, you have estrogen dominance. Let's manage now your estrogen dominance that we created, but that's under the breath, or they don't even realize what they're doing at all. So women, in order for progesterone to work, you have to have plenty of circulating estrogen. Progesterone does not work well without estrogen, but estrogen actually works without progesterone. So, but both of those hormones for a complete, healthy, hormonally healthy woman, she needs both estrogen and progesterone taken in a way at healthy levels, healthy doses, and taken in a way that replicates a woman's own natural physiological cycle, whether she has a uterus or not. And when this is done correctly, then the body goes into sync, and the body is now programmed by the way the woman takes estrogen and progesterone. Her internal processes and systems in her body fall into place with this estrogen and progesterone, the way that it's prescribed and cycled. It's a very beautiful thing. And the longer women take estrogen the right way with progesterone the right way, their brains and bodies thrive to heal, because the hormone messaging tells the woman's brain that she's actually in her reproductive prime because of the hormone levels. And we talked about hormone levels in young women. The brain and body want to heal and repair. And this is why women, when they lose their estrogen, no matter how old they are, the brain and body want to fall apart. So we have to look at this whole progesterone and estrogen thing, not in terms of age, but in terms of need and deficiency.
Hmm. So because I do see a lot of a seemingly very high percentage of women in a lot of these forums talking about HRT, saying that they cannot handle progesterone or they have a really bad reaction to progesterone. So this maybe is the same question, but I'm just trying to clarify. Is it because they really have a problem with progesterone, or because they don't have enough circulating estrogen?
Progesterone is rarely the problem.
Yeah,
It's
that's what I'm
typically,
saying, is that there seems
yeah.
to be a higher percentage of women saying they have a problem with it than actually is the percentage that do. So what's
Yeah. So
going
when a
on
woman,
there?
yeah, when a woman tells me, well, I'm on progesterone and I'm on estrogen and I feel horrible. And I said, well, what type of HRT, what protocol are you on? And they tell me, it's like, okay, well, you don't have enough estrogen. I mean, how do I know that? Because I've seen women when they have enough estrogen and how progesterone works. And this is a thing that a lot of doctors don't have. They don't have the clinical experience or training in prescribing therapeutic dose estrogen and progesterone in a manner that replicates a healthy, young, reproductive woman. The clinical outcomes, the clinical success and stability of this type of HRT is bar none better than anything else on the planet. So, like, that's why I get in these groups, these women, they're grabbing at straws. They're trying to find things that work for them. So, if you're a woman that's in these groups and you're trying to find out what's going on with you, just get your hormone, go to hormonebalancetest.com, really, and find out where you stand here. The more you understand estrogen and how much you need, the better you can take care of yourself, because you don't need to be loaded up with progesterone. You need plenty of estrogen and progesterone taken in a way that tells your brain and body that you're young and healthy and you should be for the rest of your life.
Well, that's pretty clear. I mean, seriously, right?
Well, it
Uh,
is. I mean, because it's like, this is the reason I'm so, Maggie, I've been doing this a long time and we've talked for hours about, what we've seen clinically over the years, but women do need to know. And my hopes, as you know, and I've said this, I want women to understand what they really need so they can find the help that they need. Because right now women are not being served under the guise of, we're listening. We hear you, ladies. We have new FDA. Did you know what just recently, last week or something, a new FDA drug came out for menopause now? It's like, let's keep track of these. This is just crazy. Yeah, because right now,
well,
as it stands, conventional medicine, keep hormones low, and then let's prescribe these FDA approved menopause drugs and sell $800 to $1,000 worth of supplements to patients to manage the symptoms that women wouldn't have. And this is why it's so important, where women have to take their own health into their hands. And it's unfortunate that it's that way, but it is.
well, speaking of some of these varying approaches and doctors who poo-poo this and that, a lot of doctors will say that labs don't matter and to treat symptoms instead, treat only symptoms. Why do you strongly disagree with this approach?
Through the years of education, like I mentioned, there wasn't an HRT training course that we didn't attend for many years, like for 10 solid years. And so we hear all schools of thought. Oh, you don't need to take labs, just go by symptoms. You don't need to deal with the symptoms, just go by the labs. And, of course, like I mentioned, with anything else that we learned, we take it to the clinic if it sounded reasonable. And then we would see. And because we take labs once every 4 months on patients, well, now we do because we see it's necessary. You cannot, balancing hormones for men and women, but especially for women here, I'm talking specifically about women, you have to take labs and you have to monitor clinical indicators because for this main reason, this is where we got stuck clinically. It's okay. So this is when we were prescribing low dose hormone therapy for everybody. Patients would feel good when you would give them the hormones. They would be like, oh, almost like this relief. Their brain's working, they feel good. They see the light at the end of the tunnel. They're getting through their day with plenty of energy and they're not petering out and they just feel good. Would you say this patient's hormones are balanced? If you were to check her estrogen level, she's probably still in the double digits. So would you call this hormonal balance? Because what we found was this is short-lived with this protocol because the hormones are underdosed. When women get low dose estrogen, they'll feel good in the beginning, but then they'll go back to feeling the way that they were before they started because it's like a drop of water on a desert floor. I mean, when you give women low dose estrogen and their brain and body are requiring so much more than the minuscule droplets that women are handed out, it's just crazy the difference.
Well, that explains what you're talking about right there. It explains another really common issue that I read about and we get questions about, which is I'm on HRT, but it stopped working. And you just explained what's likely going on there.
And also, really, it is those two things. We found that it's not just labs. We can get patients labs in the right ranges. Yeah, we know we have a pretty good idea about where we're going when we see a patient. It's like, okay, this is where we're going. And then we're going to do this technique and process to get there. And so when women are on low dose HRT and we take their labs, because doctors will tell them, oh, you're on hormone therapy. You should be balanced. You're on the maximum dose. You should feel fine. But because women's brains and bodies require so much more, they start to not. And you've heard me say this over and over. When women finally get enough estrogen, they stop asking. They become estrogen satiated. They're not estrogen starved anymore. And though you can feed somebody a meal, one meal, a starving person a meal, well, that's not going to take care of him for life, maybe in that moment, but he's going to go back to being starving. And so what are you going to do? You have to keep it up. You have to keep it up and you have to give them more until they're full. You can't just give them a little bit. And well, how come you're hungry again? I just gave you a cracker. It's the same way with estrogen. This is why we use both labs and clinical indicators, symptoms, to determine the hormone sweet spot because you can't go by one or the other alone. So we know that women do best when each hormone is hovering in each hormone's optimal range and that clinical indicator score is suppressed under 25. And this is what we refer to as the sweet spot. We know this. How do we know this? Because we've been doing this for so long. So yes, we do both clinical indicators, symptoms, and blood work. And that's how we know if a patient's hormones are balanced. So if you're a woman and your doctor can't tell you if your hormones are balanced or not, or when that's going to be, it will never be. If there isn't a
Yeah.
clinical destination that your doctor is shooting for, this will be nothing but an exercise wheel of managing symptoms on low dose HRT and FDA approved menopause drugs. And this is the way it is for most women. Maggie.
I know. I'm so grateful I found you, Marie. It's been life changing for me, seriously. And
It
I
was
was
for
going
me.
to doctors that called themselves hormone experts, even. And they talked a good game, and I trusted them. I believed them. I don't think they were bad people, but they did not know what they're doing based on what I now know working with you.
But you thought they did based off of the language we'll balance your hormones. We're hormone experts. We're hormone balancing experts. We're menopause experts. We're perimenopause experts. Well, you're experts at keeping women in perimenopause and keeping women in menopause. So when I hear this, oh, we're going to navigate or manage your menopause, why would a woman want to manage her menopause for life? I'd rather manage my estrogen levels in the right ranges so I have no other symptoms to manage. It won't be long till women realize that they've been underdosed, because sometimes women will get a taste of more estrogen and they're like, oh my gosh, where can I get more of that?
I know the goal of this podcast and your whole practice is to get this word out to women that they need a lot more estrogen than they think and that they've been told.
Than what they've been told. Yeah. And they have more control over how their brains and bodies function than they've been told. Our practice is for women who are tired of jumping from one doctor to the next, who want their hormone tanks filled up to the brim for life so they don't have to suffer the side effects, the negative symptoms of perimenopause or menopause, which are really the side effects of hormone deficiency.
We talked about this a little bit in the beginning, but I want to bring it up again because we often hear, I'm only 38 or 41 or 44. My doctor said I'm too young for hormone therapy. How do you answer that?
No woman is too young for HRT. The only way a woman would not qualify for HRT if there was a circumstance that would not qualify her for HRT. But any menstruating woman, no matter how old her age, benefits from HRT anytime hormones are deficient. We have women in their 20s on HRT, be it their HRT protocol is different than mine. My needs are different. So I'm on a 4th generation HRT system. Young women are typically put on a 2nd generation HRT system to meet their needs. And then when they get into, when they're finished having children, then we put them on a more advanced protocol so that we can maintain those levels for life. So there's never a day in a woman's life, as you heard me say hundreds of times, that women feel good without estrogen. Women require, like Dr. Robert Wilson said, women require estrogen from puberty to the grave. There's never a time when women do well without estrogen. And that's where I got that. Women need estrogen from puberty to the grave. I see it in my young daughter who's on hormone therapy and young women. Yeah, young women are coming in younger and younger on HRT because, and I won't get into this, but, these young women are not born with healthy reproductive parts. I think women are under the impression that each new baby comes with new, fresh, untainted parts. And that's not what's going on at all. These women who are hormonally deficient when they give birth to children typically give birth to children who have broken endocrine systems, who have challenging reproductive systems. This is why we see a lot more hormonal imbalance in young women. But unfortunately, these young women are put on birth control pills and antidepressants and told they're crazy for life. When I look back on this, Maggie, it's like we have really been sucked dry suffering wise from a very, very young age, even well before puberty.
Well, and there's so much cultural programming around this. Again, and we've talked about this quite a bit, that women are we're sort of built to suffer. We're told to suffer. We're told that life is suffering. And we're pretty good at handling it. So we do. And then we find out at a certain point, maybe it doesn't need to be all suffering, and we could actually feel good, and it doesn't all have to be decline. And that's the moment that I think life really turns around for a lot of these women who feel like it's just been all downhill. And in fact, that's a little bit this next question, that many women describe a sudden shift almost overnight where everything goes downhill. Everything feels harder physically, mentally, and emotionally. So what's actually happening hormonally when women describe it that way?
There tends to be a group of women who are very driven, who cannot stop their life because of their estrogen deficiency. They have to keep plugging along. These women tend to, and they're typically kind of type A women who running a business, managing children, raising single moms, raising children, where they are literally burning their adrenals. And then this is redlining it. So when women's stress level is more than what their estrogen levels can handle, the cortisol will kick in and women will start to redline it. And they will get into and create this adrenal fatigue type life where they don't have a choice. They get up out of bed and they make themselves against all bodily functions. But as you know, um, you can't redline a car forever. You can't redline forever. There's only so much estrogen can handle, and then cortisol will kick in, and there's only so much this cortisol works. And then you either have to supplement cortisol, calm the brain down, or restore estrogen first and then supplement cortisol. I mean, it's like they're a different, I find they're a different group where they're just absolutely crashing. They've been without estrogen, their stress levels are high, they're burning their adrenals, and then now it's just like everything is coming out, and it is I do not know how I'm going to cope, like, because they have pushed it to the nth degree.
And they're used to pushing it and they just keep pushing.
And they can't, and they're realizing their body cannot keep up. The car is falling apart as they're driving down the highway because they have gunned it, and the body cannot handle it. Women cannot drive their brains and bodies without estrogen. It's like doing that without oil in the car. I mean, it's just not going to work. So women have to really look at just how much estrogen do I need to function every day with my brain, my body. So that's why I'm big with estrogen education. The more women understand how much they need, it's like, oh, I shouldn't have to feel like if everything is feeling harder, then chances are the estrogen is tanking. It is out of the optimal range. It is out of the sweet spot range. And the lower it gets out of that sweet spot range, the worse women feel and the less they can cope. And then their adrenals will come in. And then when the adrenals come in, when the cortisol kicks up, it further suppresses estrogen. So it makes it worse. So women don't even have estrogen. And if they are taking estrogen, even low dose estrogen, and they're redlining it all the time, they won't have access to this low dose HRT because the cortisol is just controlling everything at this point. So a woman can have adequate levels of estrogen, but if her cortisol levels are just through the roof, it'll feel like she has no estrogen at all, even though her labs show that she does. So the sudden shift tells me, I start asking questions of, what do you do for a living? Are you married? What's your menstrual cycle quality like? Because this gives me information on the type of woman. Is she driven? I have 2 kids. I'm running a business. Just got a divorce last year. Kids are in school. I mean, it's just like, it's just like, got to get this done, got to get this done, got to get this done. And it's interesting to watch these women go through the process because their brains start calming down. And now they start going back to being the woman, but better, the woman they used to be, but better, because now their brain is actually working for them. And the creativity, the stability, the emotional stability, the contentment, the interpersonal. I mean, it's amazing the things that estrogen helps women with.
Well, and then that woman also then feels like she has a support underneath her because she does. It's called
Oh, she
estrogen.
does, because she doesn't have mood swings. She doesn't have headaches. She's sleeping through the night. She has a libido. She has a spring in her step. She has energy. She can connect with her children. She can connect with other people. She can make decisions. Her moods are stable today, tomorrow, next week, next month, the same day in and day out. So there's also a level of self-reliance that women can know, oh, next month or in 2 weeks, I'm going to feel just as good today as I am now, or just as good in 2 weeks as I am now. And women, they don't have that. Women don't have that. They know that in 2 weeks, they're probably not going to feel very good. So they better not make plans, or they'll do, and they'll have to dredge through it, even though they don't feel like they can. This is why I say women have more control over their brains and bodies than they've been led to believe. And estrogen is the ticket.
Mm. Another concern that we hear fairly often is that women are worried that once they start HRT, that they'll have to be on it for life, and that scares them. What do you say to that?
That tells me that they clearly do not understand what's about to happen to them if they get on a good HRT system. It should really be and what they end up doing is reframing it is, oh, I get to be on hormones for life. And so our patients, it's like, oh, I get to do this. Because when women get a taste of enough estrogen, it's not stuck on. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I have this. I mean, it's like, it's hard for me because that's kind of how I feel every day without acting like a real big goober. But no, I absolutely love my estrogen, and I cannot imagine living one day of my life without it. And so I think women need to get a taste of what it's like. You won't be saying, "Oh, am I stuck on them?" No, you get to be on them if you get on the good stuff. If you feel like that you're stuck on them, that means you're not on the good stuff. Because when women
But
get enough of the right ones, they never want to get off.
but it is also true that for some reason, should someone start HRT and they decide they don't want to be on it, they can go off, right?
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean,
Now, if a woman gets on HRT and she decides for whatever reason, and this happens from time to time, that she wants to get off of the hormones, then I explain to them what they're going to experience in the first week, second week, 1 month, and how it's just kind of the opposite of what happens when we bring the hormone levels to the sweet spot. Now there's a decline from the sweet spot down to nothing. And because the patient will know that the symptoms they are experiencing, physical and mental and emotional symptoms, are due to estrogen. This is actually when women really understand estrogen, is when they've had it and they get off of it. And they're like, oh, and then they start to realize just how much estrogen was helping them. Women, when they get off of estrogen, they don't stay off long, because now they're like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine living the next, what am I, 60? I've got, when am I going to die? 80, 85, 90. Okay, what's that, 25 years? Really? The next 25 to 30 years, this is how I'm going to live? This is how I'm going to, really? I mean, the thought of that for me is just devastating. I don't want to be old and bitchy and Karen-like and depressed and moody and, not wanting anybody to be around me and irritable. I mean, it's like, who wants to live that life?
but again, back to the social conditioning,
Yeah.
there's a belief out there that that is life. That's just what happens. You age, you get cranky, you get bitchy, your body falls apart. Tough luck, deal with it. And I think that that's part of what drives that question. But I
Mm-hmm.
also think what drives that question of do I have to be on it for life is also a misnomer, misinformation, misbelief that menopause is a period of time and that you get through it and over it and then it's all smooth sailing. And what I've learned from you is that oh no, the decline is continuing until the day you die if you are not
And then it
supplementing with
gets so
estrogen.
bad and so miserable that people don't want to be around you, and you turn into an old lady living in a trailer park with a bunch of cats that you're feeding out on your porch because nobody wants to be around you. I mean, it's just horrible. But I tell you, when women finally get enough, it really wakes them up to their life and they realized how bad things were. And especially when they've got, like I said, when they get on them and then they get off and they realize, oh my gosh, my whole life I've been estrogen deficient and told that I was this, or this, and I was given this, prescribed this, I took this, I got this treatment for estrogen.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like, I can't imagine living, like I said, I cannot imagine living my life. I feel sorry for women who actually cannot take estrogen. And we try to find a way for them to get it. But yeah, so I guess the answer to the question is, yeah, once women start on HRT, they do need to be on it for life. Because this is what I tell women: when you take estrogen and progesterone the right way in advanced therapeutic doses and take it in a way that's physiological, in that it's cycled, that progesterone is cycled, so that women at this point now have control over all the processes in their body. The way that women take a fourth generation HRT system is designed to restore, heal, repair processes, tissues, organs in the body, for the purpose of getting back into the game, to restarting again, because the hormone messaging tells the brain that she's in her reproductive prime. So the organs and the tissues want to work right. And they work with the circadian rhythm. And it's the circadian rhythm that's set up by the way that this fourth generation HRT system is prescribed. So all the systems in the body, everything in the female body is dependent upon the HRT system the patient takes. So before a patient gets off of HRT, we have this conversation with them. It's like, listen, this isn't just about a menstrual cycle. This isn't just about estrogen and progesterone. Every single part of your body, down to the nucleus of every cell, is dependent upon this. And when you choose to withdraw the juice of life, because that's what estrogen is for everybody, the juice of life, you remove that, then that hormone messaging now is this woman should be dying. So that's what the brain and body do over the next few months is, oh, my estrogen's in the double digits. I should be preparing to die because we're either in our reproductive prime or we're preparing to die. And our hormone levels tells our brain where we are. Are we in our reproductive prime? When you manage hormones in the hormone sweet spot, the female brain is under the impression the woman should be in her reproductive prime and the body wants to follow suit. When a woman's, no matter how old she is, and when a woman loses her estrogen, it tells the brain that she should be dying and deteriorating and detaching from civilization. And this is on purpose. So if we know this, we can control this. And this is what women need to understand about themselves. Listen, get this picture of what I'm saying here so that you can get the help that you need so you don't have to suffer. And this is the big message really here that I'm trying to, no, you don't have to, you don't get stuck with it, but you're going to want to. And
Well,
if you don't,
it's sort of like asking, do I need to eat for the rest of my life?
yeah,
I mean, no, you don't.
no, you
You
don't
don't
have
need
to.
to eat for the rest of your life, but you will die.
You will want to, and you'll feel better if you do. And yeah, and that's the thing. But the message really that what I'm advocating for, Maggie, is women need to look at this for what it is. Your estrogen levels tell your brain whether you're in your reproductive prime or you should be trying to die. And women have control over this, how their brains and bodies are functioning in age. And it's crazy how you can see it when you're on and off. Because I've been on and off of estrogen, I've done different protocols and on and off. And it's like I'm always reminded when I'm off. In fact, I probably will never do that again. Just, oh my gosh, thank God I have estrogen. Thank God in my lifetime, because the first part of my life, I was told that I was probably not going to live long because of the severity of my mental illness and all the brain zapping that I needed. And so this was just so refreshing for me. So yeah, for me, I look at it like I get to, and I don't have to have shock therapy, and I don't have to be on psychotropic drugs, because as long as I maintain my estrogen, I do not have not one mental illness, not one. No more bipolar, no more endometriosis, no more PMS, no more PMDD, no more headaches, no more hot flashes, no more night sweats, no more migraines, no more irritability, no more mood swing.
Yeah. Well, and again, and I know that there are some women who think that, oh, they just need to get to the other side of this and then all that's going to go away. But what they don't realize is that, yeah, maybe your hot flashes might go away over time without supplementation, but everything else that's going on is a deterioration. And the aches and pains, the
Yep.
dry eyes, the concern about falling and breaking a bone, dementia, UTIs, this all too has to do with estrogen and having enough of it.
And that's really where the hormone sweet spot came from, because we were trying to figure out, because patients kept asking us when we were doing low dose therapies, can I have some more? Can I have some more? That worked really good, but can I have some more? It stopped working. Can I have some more? It stopped working. Can I? And it's like, what do you do when you go to your mentors and say, what do we do? We're maxed out. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And then now it's like getting a more of a therapeutic dose protocols. Now you get into the more advanced protocols, and women are like, oh my gosh, this is life. This is living. And this is what I want women to understand. It's like, stop spending your time in Facebook groups trying to figure this out on your own. Get a group of people who know what they're doing and fill up your empty hormone tank. And that way you can spend the rest of your life just living it instead
Right.
of trying to manage the symptoms.
So some women may, be hearing this message loud and clear, but then what we hear is that their doctor's not hearing them. Their doctor is saying they don't need it, that they won't prescribe, that this is just aging. How should women navigate when the doctor is shutting them down?
If a doctor's not listening, if the doctor's not prescribing, and if a doctor is saying that it's just aging, then you're going to the wrong doctor. This is why women have to find out about estrogen. They have to learn about estrogen. They have to know what they need and how much they need. Then they can go find a doctor who is trained in the protocols that can give them what they need. There's a future episode coming up on how to vet an HRT doctor, how to vet a hormone doctor, because you can't just go to anybody, because many of these hormone doctors claim to be hormone experts. HRT, oh, women's health, menopause, perimenopause, we're experts, we're experts. They're experts at managing those conditions. They're not experts in full hormone restoration, because full hormone restoration means no more symptoms. It doesn't mean gaslighting. Doctors do listen. They have to listen. Doctors who prescribe advanced HRT protocols have to listen, because that's how they get the hormones dialed in. So if a doctor isn't listening, that means they don't know a thing about dialing in hormones, and hormones need to be dialed in. They need to be restored and then dialed in. And if a doctor has no training, they're going to say oh, just aging, you'll get over it. My mother had it, she's fine. My wife, she's fine. We don't have sex anymore, but she's fine. I mean, it's like, because why? Because she shuts up now, because nobody's listening. So women just kind of shut down, or they're shelled out drugs that turns them into a shell of a woman, and they stop complaining. So my message to women is like, listen, if your doctor's not listening to you, be really listen carefully to what they're not saying and what they're not doing. Find somebody who knows what they're doing to give you what you need. But it really does start with learning about estrogen. How much estrogen do you need? Most women do real well in the hormone sweet spot. And so that's just what we recommend, because women can have too little estrogen and feel like hell. They can have too much estrogen and feel like hell in different ways than estrogen deficient, but they mimic each other. But then there is this sweet spot, the Goldilocks that we talk about, Maggie. The hormone sweet spot of hormonal balance is where estrogen is in the optimal range, progesterone, testosterone, all the hormones are in the optimal range. And not only that, they're all working together so that the brain and body work in this circadian cycle rhythm, and all the processes, the menstrual cycle. And that's the beauty about the menstrual cycle. When the menstrual cycle is healthy and incident free, we know the other processes in the female body are functioning the way that they're supposed to. That's why the menstrual cycle is so important. So for women who are going to doctors who are not listening to them, if you're continuing to go to a doctor that's not listening to you, then that's your problem. That's your fault. Women have to take the bull by the horns and learn about estrogen. Don't just jump from one doctor. Oh, this doctors aren't helping me. The doctors aren't helping me. I'm doing this and it's not helping. You learn. You get the information. You learn how much estrogen you need. Listen to these podcasts. Listen to people who have stepped outside of standard of care, conventional HRT prescribing, and listen to people like you and me, Maggie, who have had this experience, who've been on low dose HRT and who are on therapeutic dose protocols. It's life changing. It's like, it's not even the same.
No, it is life changing, and it is a completely different approach
An
with a different
experience.
outcome.
Yeah, it's just a different experience.
Yeah. Yeah. The low dose is just a type of management, it felt to me. And all systems were still breaking down and heading towards, final destruction.
What's interesting, when I talk to doctors who are only trained in low dose HRT systems, and I ask them, how do you know when to stop? Like, how do you know? Well, I just max out on that dose, or if the patient's spotting. And it's like, but they're still asking you, like, what do? You go, well, I don't know what to do. This is where we get our education. So, yeah. So if a doctor wants to understand full estrogen restoration, they have to go seek out treatment, because this isn't necessarily the doctor's fault, Maggie, as you know. It is, but
Yeah.
it isn't. The doctors that are seeking HRT assistance and training, they do go to the A4M and IFM, those institutions. The American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine or the Institute for Functional Medicine are the two main institutions that doctors go, but they're only taught low dose protocols. So as you mentioned, back to your point, yes, this is intentional. As long as women are underdosed in estrogen, doctors can intentionally prescribe and sell. But this doesn't benefit women, certainly
Yeah.
not in the long term.
Well, and I do think that, we've talked about this a lot, that just like a generation of women lost out on HRT because of that Women's Health Initiative faulty study, a generation of doctors as well. So, there needs to be some catch up here for doctors as well to really get trained and learn how to do this at a therapeutic level.
Yeah, that's why we offer the advanced HRT training, clinical application training, because we need more physicians to step outside of the standard of medicine box by keeping women just miserable. Because I'll tell you something, as a physician, what's nice when you see physicians who get this training and you watch them clinically, they get so excited because it's like a medicine that they were hoping they would learn in medical school, actually getting patients well instead of managing disease. So they actually see
Yeah.
for themselves are actually curing patients. We can use the word cure because if a patient no longer has a condition and all they've done was take estrogen and progesterone, is that a cure? So it's more
Yeah.
exciting for physicians, I think, because I've seen physicians, they're just like, oh, they just love this the day they see patients who are, in the clinic. And it's easier for doctors to transition out of the low static dose HRT prescribing and say, this makes sense to me. Teach me how to prescribe hormones for women that I can regulate a healthy menstrual cycle with confidence, without fear, and so I can be successful at it. So if you are one of those doctors, hit us up at panaceasciences.com because women need doctors who know what they're doing.
Well, and I would venture that most doctors who have put in the extraordinary amount of time that it takes to become a doctor did so because they want to help people.
Mm-hmm.
That's the primary
Most,
motivator.
yeah.
So if a woman listening feels that she's lost herself, her drive, her clarity, her joy, what do you want her to know right now, Marie?
Really, I think the main message, Maggie, is you have to understand estrogen. It just starts there. How much your brain and body need estrogen. And then, really, at that point, once you get a clear understanding about, oh, I've been underdosed. Oh my gosh, I need estrogen. Now you can go find people who can help you. But certainly, the more you know about estrogen, the better you can control not only your life, but your family's living situation, your relationships, your job. Everything is impacted when women have enough estrogen. So, yeah, my main message for women is understand how much estrogen you need and then go find those people who know what they're doing to get you what you need.
Marie, these questions that we've been going over today really reflect what so many women are trying to make sense of right now. And I think this conversation is going to land for a lot of listeners. Before we wrap up, is there anything else that you want to add or to leave women with today?
Yeah, I guess I think the final message here is yes, I want women to know that what they're experiencing has a physiological basis to it. Perimenopause and menopause only occur when estrogen is low. And when estrogen is insufficient, the female body and brain do not function the way that they were designed to do. So if you're a woman struggling to get straight answers about your hormones, go to advancedhormonebalancing.com and book a discovery session. We'll be able to answer your questions here and to see if one of our advanced hormone restoration programs is a good fit for you. And if there's something you'd like us to discuss on the Menopause Moxie podcast or have a question for an upcoming Ask Moxie episode, send us an email at moxie@menopausemoxie.com. So thanks for joining us today. And remember, everybody benefits when your hormones are balanced. I'm Marie Hoäg, and this is the Menopause Moxie podcast.